Hello and welcome to Football Profile, where we look at the history of the beautiful game. In today's episode, we're going to look at some of the worst shirt sponsors that teams have embarrassingly had broadcasted to the world. From unintended innuendo to plain stupidity, clubs seem to have had all manners of adverts appear on their shirts. So without further ado, let's have a look at the worst of them. Scottish club St Johnstone were sponsored throughout the 80s by Bonner Textiles, a company based along the road in Dundee. For Scots, the name is merely a surname, but across the English-speaking world, the pronunciation would be significantly different, specifically in reference to the male anatomy. To many, seeing a team have a sponsor relating to the male appendage certainly caused much hilarity. The sponsorship only lasted for 2 years, with the owners perhaps noticing its misconstrued meaning. At first glance, Burger King doesn't seem like a very strange sponsor. Fast food brands have regularly been involved in football for a long time. However, what is so funny about their sponsorship with Getafe is the way they went about it. The shirt featured their mascot's face underneath, so that when players scored, they could celebrate with the face of the king. A surreal sponsorship that also saw the king himself at the games egging the team on in his creepy smiling costume. Certainly a weird time for Getafe fans. In the early 2000s, Portsmouth found themselves sponsored by American soft toy company Ty. The company were famous for making Beanie Babies that were all the craze in the 1990s, but their association with football was pretty tenuous at best. While some company logos work great on kits and feel so natural, this certainly wasn't the case. The Red Heart logo was a bit of an eyesore, giving the kit an ugly appearance. The club was pretty successful during this period, and much like the exchange of Beanie Babies themselves, probably netted a few quid from the deal. But that really isn't an excuse for this weird combination. In the 2008 season, West Ham signed a deal with travel company XL Leisure, and no one really batted an eyelid. All appeared pretty normal. That was until the company went bust halfway through the season, famously leaving 85,000 travellers stranded abroad. Not a very good look when they were also paying extortionate amounts to sponsor a Premier League football club. West Ham were suddenly sponsorless on the biggest stage in world football. They awkwardly replaced the logos with large numbers on the front of the shirts until they could find an able replacement. But it was all a bit embarrassing for a Premier League club signing a deal with a business on the verge of collapse. French club Lyon sported a kit with a rather infamous number on the front for 2 seasons in the 80s. Famously sexual people, to see this on a French kit was slightly less surprising than if it had been anywhere else, but only slightly. But no, it wasn't in reference to the act of lovemaking. The number was supposedly in reference to the region in which Lyon is based, whose region code is 69. That's great, but I bet very few people across the globe recognise this when they saw it on their TV screens. Signing up to a deal with a massive Hollywood film studio sounds like an ideal sponsorship opportunity for any football club. This is what Atletico Madrid did in the early 2000s when they brought Columbia Pictures into the fold. What few people expected was their kit to become a revolving billboard for upcoming films. Their kit changed almost weekly to feature the newest films. Hitch, SWAT and Hellboy all appeared, with perhaps the most famous being the memorable, if horrific, Spider-Man 2 ad on the famous red and white stripes. Still, it's hard not to laugh at seeing Fernando Torres tuck the ball away with white chicks emblazoned across his shirt. Musicians in football have always had a tight connection. Oasis are synonymous with Manchester City, Elton John with Watford, and even Rod Stewart with Celtic. But we haven't seen their names feature on the shirts themselves. That's where 90s pop group Wet 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 step in, with their sponsorship of their local club Clydebank. The 90s were a weird time, but that didn't help Clydebank avoid being mocked roundly by Scottish football fans, who found the deal laughable. The band, known for their love songs and soppy lyrics, didn't exactly fit the image of a tough West of Scotland football club. The deal didn't last long, and either did Wet Wet Wet's fame, as both club and band succumbed to a depressing demise in the coming decade. If you recognise this sponsor, it's best that you don't admit it to anyone. Voukofalas are a small club based in the city of Larissa in Greece. During the financial crisis, the club, desperate for money to keep afloat, received a lucrative offer from 2 local brothels to keep trading. The houses of ill repute were featured on the jerseys to the shock of locals who went to watch the matches. The club at the time pointed out that many clubs are sponsored by betting and lottery companies, so why not a brothel? Well, I don't know if that's sound logic, but it definitely made for one of the more memorable sponsorships. AC Milan are synonymous with incredible sponsors. Both Opel and Bwin looked elegant on the shirts and bring back memories of incredible teams at the height of European football. But Milan is also infamous with fashion, and a sponsorship with a massive clothing brand was surely inevitable. An icon like AC Milan would surely be sponsored by Armani, Gucci or Versace, but no, they wouldn't. Enter Poo Jeans. Choosing a brand that's name literally means feces was a bold move by the Rossoneri board, and despite only lasting 1 season, the internet has immortalised it. Milan would live up to the sponsor's name, however, as they found themselves relegated from Serie A that season. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Football Profile. What did you think of our list? Has your club had an awful sponsor in the past? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to see more in the future.